UPAC. Doesn't anybody listen to Tupac anymore? You've heard this before. Everybody's heard this one. They always do commercial, don't they? Is there any place they don't do commercials? All right, tell me if you guys have heard this one. Ready? You've heard it. It's actually a good video, too. I think it's a remake of another Changes song. There's a lot of changes. It sounds like it, but this is Tupac for sure. Never heard this? You have? This is a good one, man. Tupac was deep. Like, he was for real, man. It's about policy. There's some policy. Him and Biggie. I think the feds killed them both. For real. I'm serious. I'm dead serious. It wasn't gang stuff. It was the federales who killed him. For real. But his mom was big in the Panthers movement, right? Yeah. So he was only like 26. I don't know how to be responsible for what every black male do. I don't know. I guess I am going to say. So you heard it, but nobody else has heard it. Okay. So is he then considered a blood if he's wearing, for real? I'm for real. If he's wearing red, is he? I know he was West Coast. Biggie was East Coast. Because Biggie was New York. Tupac was.
He probably was a blood.
What's that?
Probably was a blood.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's all right. So yeah, he had a lot of. He did have a lot of stuff out for real. All right, so we had. Dang, we're getting into policy now. Do you guys have this weird look on your Schoology? Like now that the new term started, I go to my grade book. Look what happened. I mean, I still can look it up, but does yours? Nothing. So I have to like go into a different view, and I'm hoping that you guys. I'm sure if you just go to the main page, you're just going to have to take it from the main page. Anybody else having that weird view problem? Schoology's messing my head up.
Did that sign up thing already pass?
You can still do it. Is it right here? Right there. Sign for the date you're going to do your presentation.
And then you said we gotta do a PowerPoint on our papers, right?
Right. Yeah, you're presenting either your first paper or your second paper, essentially.
What is the second paper?
What's that?
What is the second paper?
Here is the second paper. It is right above that one called Policy, Individual Social Welfare Topic. Is that the first one? And then you can present on that one or the Social Justice Topic paper. So this is due, yes, it's not until next month, but that's only 2 weeks away, April 1st. So in your Social Justice Topic paper, you'll write on any of these: child labor, access to clean water, food, shelter, human dignity, how poverty affects human rights, exploitation of children, human trafficking, right to adequate health care, how climate change impacts developing countries, racial profiling, access to adequate food and nutrition. There's a ton of stuff on that one. Poverty and inequality, access to education. Is anybody else hot? Like, it's humid out there again. I burn up every day. So, all right. Landfills, proximity to the homes of the poor, industrial air pollution, how it often affects the poorest and the most vulnerable. Medical experimentation, you could do that on this current vaccine because they haven't approved it and they're shooting everybody up with a vaccine.
When we present, we can't just like read our papers? Like we got
You can read it if you want. I mean, that's the point of a PowerPoint. Like, you could get up here and have your PowerPoint here, and then we're all looking at it here. You can read it if you want. Yes, ideally you want to learn how to present like from memory, but it's okay if you read it. So this one, it already does say the presentation should discuss chosen social justice topic, as well as thoughtfully and thoroughly explore how it's a matter of social justice, as well as how social workers should handle an issue within their social work practice. Like, what does your mom do for social work? You could even talk about that.
She, I don't know. I just know she be helping people get like food stamps and
Okay,
helping them find jobs and
okay,
food and stuff like that.
right. Oh, okay. So 2 to 3 pages, APA style. Double space, 12 font. You could use Courier New again if you really want to. And then Grammarly. Any of you guys use that? Because I just started using that again.
Yeah.
And I pasted my whole paper into it. Because we're trying to publish another article, and you got free, and then you just paste your paper into there, which is kind of cool. So if you need to check it, oh, they want you to buy it. Oh, is it in here? Is that why it's weird? I don't want to sign up right now. So anyway, does that answer your question for the second paper? Any topic look interesting in there for you guys? I'll help you choose them right now.
So if I said this is the third week of March, right?
It is, yeah, you're right, because
So I signed up for the third week of March. I don't have it like all set today. I just love to finalize stuff. So do I present Thursday?
yeah, you don't want to do it today, you're saying?
No.
Yeah, just do it Thursday.
Okay.
You'll be one of the first ones.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's good. It is good to get it over with because, it's getting hotter and hotter. And by the time we graduate, or whatever they call it this year, do you guys still have a week left to register classes? April 1st, I think. Did you do yours with your registrar? Do you guys have advisors that are different than in your college because you're freshmen, if you're a freshman? And then you get a different advisor?
No, it depends on your major. So, if you come in undecided, they give all the undecided majors advisor. If you're STEM, then go to a STEM advisor. If you're like business, then go to a business advisor.
Okay.
Mine changed every semester.
Is that because they left?
Ours is staying the same now because I talked to my advisor, like I've gotten one every semester, and she was saying that you get one when you first become a freshman, and then you transfer into your college, and then you get one to transition into your college, and then you get one for your college.
So the key to finishing is you've got to take 5 every semester. Like finishing on time, I should say. Just make sure you got 5 classes every
It
semester.
doesn't have to be 5, it just has to be 15 credit hours.
Okay. 15, I think it's 121 to graduate. So there's 1 in there, you got to do 16 probably. It used to be 124 credit hours, but now it's only 121, depending on your major. Like I know social work is 121. So as long as you take and pass those, you're good to go. So there's the second paper. I'll check with all of you again though. Does any of you have this weird looking grade book now? Like when you look at your grades, I go in and it's like blank. It's weird, but I know you still can access it through like the main page. So if you go in and just make sure you've got all your assignments done down the line in this first week of spring. And then it's a lot, isn't it? Are we really already on chapter 8 and it's not even the 8th week? And one other thing I was starting with is last night I got home, and maybe you guys can relate to housing policy as we were talking about houses yesterday or whenever that was. Was that the last class? I get home and show up and I'm all happy as we're getting our stimulus and we're all going to throw a party on the casino, and then nothing. Here's what they sent me. They said this right here. They
What
said,
casino are you going to?
there's one in Cincinnati. I'm just kind of joking. I'm being a jokester. But I mean, that is an option. If you got all your bills paid, maybe you might.
Young,
What's that?
young.
I have, yeah.
No, shoot dice.
Yeah. I'm getting a little rusty because it's been like 21 years.
Come practice.
Okay. At least learn how. Well, so here's my problem. I get home and they say I have $1,000 shortage on my taxes. I was pissed. Because, like, they basically, the escrow, when you buy a house, they do one account for your taxes, one account for your homeowners. And they somehow messed it up. They thought that it was going to be, this much, but it was that much. So now they have to raise my mortgage by $200 a month. And I'm switching banks. I was pissed. So that right there is enough to get me to switch a bank. So finishing with housing policy, that's one of the things that could come up. Some of you were saying you'd rather rent when you graduate. Some of you want to buy a house if you graduate, maybe. Anybody a homeowner in here? The youngest homeowner I ever met was an 18-year-old. Oh, that's not the right PowerPoint, is it? There we go. So that's one of the ways people started like gaining wealth in America was by like house values. And if you guys remember some of the houses we were looking up on Thursday and how expensive they are and what you would pay. Anybody else have a zip code in mind that you wanted to buy a house in? We could look it up for you.
338.
Is that in Georgia?
Yeah.
All right, let's see. What's the actual number again?
338.
Okay. Zillow, and then just, have you already been looking?
I'm looking at apartments.
And they're all,
No, 38.
oh, okay. Is that still Georgia?
I don't know.
All right, so housing, I bet you they're expensive and freaking, well, there's one for 180. I know that doesn't sound cheap, but when you look at the mortgage, that looks pretty, man. It's owned by Zillow. Holy crap. That's what I was expecting, about 209. Holy, 408. There's one for 189.
Yeah, during that area code, that's not Atlanta. It's like 30, 45 minutes away from Atlanta.
Okay.
So you still get like the Atlanta experience, but
You want a condo?
No.
You'd rather have a house?
A house or an apartment, not a condo.
Right. Condos are nice because they do everything for you. Like they shovel the outside. This one looks pretty, man. Are they just like spicing it up? Look at that. And I bet you the payment would be, you said rentals were about $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
This is how much they think your mortgage. So probably with escrow and insurance, that's your payment. And sometimes they break it down for you too, which is kind of cool. Oh, I hate when they do that. Let's skip this. So, did you look through any of the, I mean, there's what you get. It's not like modernized, but it looks like everything still works in there and you got windows and doors on it, which is nice. You ever move into those old crack houses? Sometimes they're missing a window or a door. That's pretty. It's a little bit too white for me. Like I would feel like I'd get it muddy or something from the garden. But that's one, and then there was another one. Well, let's get to the bottom first. It's 3 bedrooms. You said you were looking with 2 roommates?
1 or 2.
Oh, I forgot. Georgia doesn't have basements sometimes, do they? Because they're like in a swamp, I think. All right, so that's one, and then there is this other white-looking house that was. There's one for 150. How's that look?
Like the ghetto.
Is it? Oh, it doesn't have windows and doors. You're right. Look at that. Dang it. Crack house is for sale. Ooh, somebody kicked that one in. Oh crap! They've been smoking hotboxing the whole house. All right, let's not buy that one. I mean, it would be a nice fixer upper, but 150,000? Are you serious? Nah. Let's skip that house for today. You want one for 129, or is that?
I don't like that one. I don't like the way that one look.
All right, let's keep going. That's a townhouse. I don't know if those are the same as a
Nah,
con.
it's too close together.
That's true. You want to kind of have 156 for this one.
You can do that one.
You get a garage, you could pull right in, like shut it, no neighbors, say hi, how you doing today? Ooh, whenever they only have one picture, that scares me. That tells me there might be a mouse inside of there. Yeah, a mouse or two. Where's that white one though? That was like the third one down. So yeah, and then your payments are, how much was rentals down there?
For like a little car house that you was talking about.
Yeah.
About 700-800, and then for diesel, when you pay anything from 11 to 2,
So it's called Lithuania, Georgia?
Lithuania.
Okay. So that one's 209. How do you feel about that? Might be expensive. They say it's going to cost you $1,000 a month if you mortgaged this and financed it. But here, you know, it's not modern, updated, but it's not bad. You got 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. You could all have your own bathroom at that rate. And then here's the white one I was thinking. But this, it also scares me when they're foreclosures, because sometimes people, if you get foreclosed on, they get pissed and like stuff the toilet full of like paper towels and then turn the water on and then leave the house. You know, that's what scares me when they're at foreclosure. But that's, you know, it doesn't look like they trashed it, but why do they only have 5 pictures? So anyway, there's some options. If you, how long did you want to live down there though? Are you from down there?
No, my sister stays down there.
Okay. And she rents,
Yeah, she rents an apartment.
and it's about 1,000.
11.
Damn. How many roommates?
9. It's a 1-bedroom apartment.
Oh, dang. She pays that for herself.
Yeah.
And did you tell her she can buy those houses for that same?
But she stays in a gated community.
Okay. All right. Well, so that's one of the areas that people have their wealth. Do you guys know anything about income transfers? Because this is something that they say is kind of happening right now. Redistribution of wealth. A lot of times they do it with our tax dollars. So say, well, yeah, our stimulus check is kind of a transfer. So all of us who make less than 50 or 100,000 a year, we're getting a bunch of stimulus checks. And if you make more than that, they aren't getting a stimulus check. So that's kind of like a transfer of wealth that comes out of their tax dollars and payments and goes into us. Anybody get the stimulus yet? Because I heard if you're at a big bank, they won't give you it until after March 17th because they're keeping their money for like, they make $1 million a day off of late fees. So they're just holding on to the money and not giving it to you until like after St. Patrick's Day because the late fees. So some of the economic growth, how do you guys, after seeing some of the policy and writing your first policy paper, feel about some of the new policies that are coming out, like the immigrants at the border, stuff of that nature? How do you think they're handling that? And are you open to like giving everyone who comes to our border asylum status, refugee status, which we give them hopefully some money and food and housing? And if anybody comes here, should we just set them up and hook them up, or should we be protective of our borders so that we don't take in too many and then we can't feed our own, if that makes sense? What do you think? I know this is a tough topic. Because we kind of have a border crisis going on right now. mostly in like Arizona and Mexico. So you could take one side or the other, or you could even stay somewhere in the middle. Should we give everyone who shows up at the U.S. border that's claiming asylum status asylum and housing somewhere and food stamps, which it may come out of our pocket, tax dollars? Or should we be protective and kind of have the secluded border and closed off border? Anybody? Want to see a video before you answer it? So this was last month. This was the first. They heard that we're going to have a change in our immigration policy. And there's a few other videos too. Like, well, here's the Speaker of the House talking on it yesterday, I think. So we actually deployed FEMA to this part of the camp. Federal emergency.
The Biden administration arguing changes to the Trump administration's policies that required refugees to remain in Mexico while their asylum applications were processed, and a change to a pandemic-era rule that now allows unaccompanied minors to go through their refugee process in the country instead of out of it, that led us to this point. Although they were short on solutions for the problems of the migrants who are already here. Here's some of my interview with Kevin McCarthy on what he thinks the administration should do now.
What happened was, why are they all coming now? The incentive. So if you don't change the incentive of the new presidential policy, this is only going to be larger next month and the month after. So we know how to care for people that are here, but the problem is if you don't do some action different, you're overwhelmed like we are now.
Chuck, this is a seasonal problem. It is a rolling crisis. There are more migrants on the way from their homes, particularly in Central America. I asked McCarthy what to do about this that is happening now. He says, tell them, don't come now, don't come now.
Well, Garrett, the House has two reform bills, immigration reform bills, in the works this week. A path to citizenship for the Dreamers and a bill giving legal status to temporary farm workers. Any chance for bipartisan support on either of these?
It's possible, and these bills were chosen to be voted on this week for that reason. The Biden administration's comprehensive immigration reform package, frankly, isn't ready for prime time. I've been talking to Democratic and Republican lawmakers about it in my day job up on Capitol Hill. And the reality is, there aren't the votes for a comprehensive package yet. But the Biden administration and congressional Democrats are hoping those two measures that you laid out, which are more popular, certainly the protections for Dreamers have received bipartisan support in the past, could be things that could pass potentially through both houses this spring and maybe create some momentum for a more comprehensive plan in the months ahead, Jeff.
So there's kind of a little bit of a battle going on, like, have you guys seen the videos of caravans of people walking up from El Salvador and Nicaragua? And I think they're claiming asylum status based on climate change. Like they're saying it's getting too hot down there to grow food. So if you were a policymaker for a day and you got to be the president and Congress and people who make those bills, what would you do with immigrants and refugees?
I feel like they make like a big deal about it. I just feel like it's serious, but it's not that serious to a point to like this. take away from like their families and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, because they were placing the kids in like different homes. You're saying, right? I can see that. Yeah, because that's one of the policies. I think the U.S. still accepts more immigrants than any other country that's globally, at least.
I feel like the US has more issues bigger than, immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's kind of selfish and kind of mean, but I feel like they shouldn't be taking any more immigrants right now simply because they don't know what to do with the ones we have now. So, for them to be taking in more people and more children, it's gonna make the problem bigger than it already is.
Like we had so many layoffs last year of the jobs that we should make sure that people that live here have jobs first and then open the borders up or.
You know, I feel like we should deal with what we have going on right now because COVID, and even before COVID, it was just a lot of chaos with jobs and poverty. And most of the time when the foreign people come over, they end up living in poverty. So it's not like they come over here and get glorious doctors and lawyer jobs. They come over here and look at like Family Dollar or gas stations. So.
Right, yeah.
But I also feel like people don't realize that that's better than what they have in their home country.
Yes, it is look better than what they have in their home country, but I still feel like I said it might be selfish, but I feel like the U.S. has issues that the U.S. has to figure out before it can help anybody else out.
It is a hard, like, there's no right answer to this, and that's kind of why I put it out for discussion, because, like, your first instinct is like, oh my gosh, they're hungry, feed them. And it's like, wait a minute, that's the food for my brothers or sisters. And it's, so what do? Do you take care of yourself first before you can take care of other people? Or do we, like, this is the debate going on, so I don't know how they're going to settle on it, and there is no right answer. There was a few reports that came out that I was just kind of following, and I truly do see both sides of it because it's hard not to see both sides of it because, like, we had about another 1 million file for unemployment again last year. Some would say we wouldn't have our fruits and vegetables picked if we didn't let migrants in because none of us want to do that work. That's what some people argue, like, well, if you want to have people do your harvesting and, like, make sure you have food and slaughtering cows.
This crisis is created by the presidential policies. You're an okay guy. Why don't you just submit your making mistake?
Republicans are blasting the Biden administration for its handling of the border crisis. Holding facilities continue to fill up.
We have a lot of critics, but many of them are not putting forward a lot of solutions.
More European nations are pausing their rollout of the AstraZeneca vaccine over reports of blood clot. This does not necessarily mean recipients are linked to vaccination. Senator Ron Johnson defending comments that he would have felt unsafe if it were Black Lives Matter protesters storming the U.S. Capitol. There was nothing racial about my comments. Nothing whatsoever.
Dan Holland was confirmed as Interior Secretary, the first Native American to serve in a presidential cabinet. A deadly plane crash in Florida. The plane crash nose first hitting into the street and blowing up. All that. Tiffany Haddish is sharing her emotional reaction to finding out she won a Grammy.
Just won the best comedy ever.
All that matters.
My Paramount Plus colleague Trevor Noah knocked it out of the arena in that he was never in the arena because it was the first time the Grammys took place outdoors, which worked out great, except for when Bruno Mars was carried off by a hawk on CBS this morning. The baby also performed outside with background singers.
So yeah, this is one of the policies to look out for. You guys could write on this for your second paper as a social justice topic. Like, do we take them in? As social workers, do we feed the hungry, house the homeless, comfort the struggling, and do things to help them out? Do we print money to be able to pay for it? Because there's different ways that we would have to pay for it. I know we've went through the minimum wage and like what a living wage would be. Then you guys, how old would you have been in 2008? Okay. That was the first time we got checks from the government. It was kind of weird, but Bush signed into law this Emergency Economic Stabilization Act, and we all got $600 in 2008. It was kind of weird because that was like the first time I've seen the government mail us out checks and money. That's when he also created the TARP, Temporary Assistance Relief Program. It was designed to purchase assets and equity from financial institutions and strengthen the financial sector. So that was some of the first policies in our first financial crisis of my lifetime. I mean, we've had a few others. We've had the Great Depression. We also had the 70s, where there was a ton of inflation. Obama had to inherit that. So from 2009 to 2016, we were really in recovery with different things that Obama had. He did the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. So that was a stimulus package that was enacted February of 2009. That was like the bottom of the stock market. So a lot of people watched the stock market crash from October of 2008 until about March of 2009. It was crashing hard too. These efforts were supposed to help those affected by the recession. So a few of my friends, I feel like, got unemployment for 52 weeks. They extended. So for a whole year, they were paying unemployment, kind of like what they're doing now, because there weren't enough jobs. They also did COBRA back then. COBRA was so you could stay on your insurance. This is another, probably a social justice paper you could write on why everyone should have health insurance. And that stood for Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act. They always have such big names that I can't pronounce. So that one provided temporary health care. And it was like if you were laid off, your former employee would have to continue that health coverage. Retirees, spouses, and former spouses, you all got that health care. So that was some of the Obama administration stuff. I'm going to get back over to the next round. Any questions on chapter 8 at this point? Because we're cruising on into the end to have you guys do some of your presentations. So nobody got their stimulus check yet. I heard some people on social media. So
These days, there is a lot to balance,
commercial.
but Grammarly ensures
This is about inflation.
The flow of money is a crucial thing for any economy. But this flow is getting affected badly due to the pandemic. To avoid this, the central banks and governments around the globe have been injecting trillions of dollars into the economy. But now comes the big question. Is this the right solution, or it is creating more problems like inflation? Well, stick around and find out. First, we will see what is inflation. Inflation means rise in the prices of goods and services of daily or common use, such as food, clothing, housing, and transport. The reason behind this rise in the general level of prices is the unit of currency effectively buys less than it did before. That's why we can say that inflation indicates a decrease.
That's the Indian rupee. So it costs $1 to buy 50 Indian rupees.
In the purchasing power of a nation's currency. But many economists believe that small amount of inflation is always better than deflation. Deflation is the exact opposite of inflation. That means we can buy more goods and services and less money. It seems like a good thing, but it isn't. Deflation causes a direct impact on debt. Let us see an example. If you took a loan of $50,000 with the interest rate of 5%, and that time the deflation rate per year is 2%, that means effectively you're paying 7% interest on your loan. This doesn't mean your interest rate has increased to 7%, but the value of 5% has increased due to deflation. So every year it will be harder and harder to pay back the loans due to this.
This is confusing to me, but this is the problem with the opposite of inflation. So this person obviously is arguing inflation is better than deflated money, where you can buy, like computers and electronics and cell phones, we've seen deflation. You can buy more, like a big screen TV for way cheaper than 5 years ago, right? I think it used to be like that for 100 or 200. Now you can get like that for 200. So he's arguing it's better to have inflation than deflation.
And it will eventually slow down the economic growth. Another direct impact of deflation is on job market. In case of deflation, people will get less salary than what they used to get earlier, which is not a good motivation for promotion. So that is why most of the governments target 1% to 4% of inflation rate to keep up the economic growth. Yet keep in mind that only a small amount of inflation is good. Due to the COVID pandemic, governments across the globe have been injecting trillions of dollars into the economy in the form of stimulus packages. Also, the central banks of many countries have put money in the market, plus they have lowered the interest rates. So due to the flow of this huge amount of money, the possibility of inflation becomes higher. Till now, inflation has not increased drastically. And this is because of two main reasons. First is, the COVID lockdown has impacted the...
Is that a band, or does a band have to be a grand or two? Is it a grand?
A band is a band.
So a band isn't this holding the dollars together, because that's only 200, even though it's a band that holds it. Okay.
The job market. And due to high unemployment, people don't have enough money to spend. Even the people who got paychecks from the government, like in the US, do not tend to spend on non-essential things. As a result of these things, demand in the consumer sector is low. Second reason is the banking system. Most of the stimulus money was given to the banks, so the bank can give that money in form of a loan. That means bank will decide to give the money or not. Hence, this creates a barrier on money flow. So due to low consumer demand in banks, inflation did not increase drastically. But there is an area where we are seeing pretty high inflation rate. That is the asset price inflation. Prices of stocks, bonds, and credit spread are going up because of inflation. Even though this inflation is only seen in small area of the economy, there are still many risks involved. Till now, governments have poured a lot of money in the economy. And if excess money is not taken out, it may cause serious problems like hyperinflation. Now, what might they do to draw out the extra money? Well, first, central banks might increase the interest rate on loans. This means people will hesitate to take loans, and that restricts the supply of money in the economy. And because of this, risk of inflation gets low. But we have to understand that increasing interest rate might not benefit the economy directly. It is just a way to stop inflation. Then when the economies will be stable, the governments might increase taxation to draw out the extra money. Although this will also help them to pay back the debts. So ultimately the money which is poured in would be recovered from the pockets of normal taxpayers. And this makes us ask you, what do you think about this whole scenario? Tell us in the comment section below.
So what do you guys know of inflation? What do you see of inflation? Would you prefer to have inflation rather than deflation policy? I know this is a very out there topic also, but deflation is where the price of goods go cheaper, like TVs or computers and cell phones. We see that happen, but usually inflation, like food, gas, housing, that's where inflation happens. This dude's arguing it's better to have inflation, like prices keep going up because you don't get screwed if you buy a house at $100,000 and now all of a sudden it's only worth $80,000.
I feel like deflation is better than inflation simply because with deflation you get more for the consumer, you get more for your money. Also, when things are cheaper for companies, people tend to buy more.
I know.
If I can afford one, then I'll just get one. But if I can afford two, then I'll get two. So
Right,
I feel like deflation is better for both parties.
right. And I guess the hard part for deflation is they would have to do the opposite of what they're doing now. So for inflation, they print more money and increase the money supply and give us all $1,000. If they were doing deflation, they would make it harder to accrue dollars, if that makes sense. Like dollars are more valuable because they're harder to come by. So they always try to tweak it right in the middle at like 0.9% inflation. And that's kind of been the government policy for a long time. And that's, you know, and the problem is that it works until it doesn't work. The problem is, you know, until stuff gets too expensive. Healthcare is a good example. I used to only pay $20 a month for healthcare in 2008. I feel like right now I pay $300 a month. My old job, I had to pay $1,000 a month for healthcare. That sucked. I quit that job. Any of you guys work at jobs where you're offered healthcare? Or do you have to buy it here at Central State?
I mean, I didn't.
You can stay on your parents till you're 26, right? Okay. That was also this policy.
Just saying, Central has their own healthcare, but you can waive it. I use my healthcare.
It's like $800 a month
Is it really?
for the 1 year.
Wait a minute, $800 a month?
It's for the 1 semester.
Okay. But it's still like, that would be $1,600 or $2,400 a year probably, which is still, okay. And it's probably not great. Like they probably have a big copay. So yeah. What's that?
I was saying you can only use it at Central. If I was to get hurt and go to the hospital, Central's not gonna cover it.
Oh, it's for like you have a doctor over here or something? Oh, geez, I forgot about that. Okay. And they're offering the vaccine over there. So yeah, that was to keep on your mom and dad's health care until you're 26. That's the Obama administration and the Omnibus Act. So again, that could be another paper that you write, why it's a social justice issue that we should all have health insurance. Have any of you guys ever had to go without health insurance? I did for a little bit. I did it just because it was so expensive, and back then you could choose, like, I'm a healthy 26-year-old male, I don't need health insurance. But now you have to have health insurance because, like, we're all paying into the system, so that's also what came with it. So that's some of the stuff that came up. I have more on my intro to social work class. I have videos from her. She explains inflation like amazingly. But coming up, you guys, as long as you just kind of stay up into the intro to social welfare, you have your paper in a couple weeks, and then half of the class is online, obviously, the discussions. I did find 13th for free on YouTube, which I was impressed by. It's on like the Netflix. So that's more for a week and a half from now. This week is the poverty documentary that we were doing some of that documentary. I think it's still that family that's in, this is about the financial crisis. I'm sorry. So the poor family is the one before that. But this kind of explains how shit went bad in 2008, and it did go bad. Like we had way more layoffs than we did last year with COVID, with that financial crisis. The one to finish off the month is about the, some call it the fallacy of the American dream, that we can all get a college degree, have a good enough job to have 2-car garage, house, and stuff like that. Nowadays, it's starting to take a master's degree on top of the bachelor's to get some of that. And even with the doctorate, I think they made it to where it's hard to survive with any amount of education. And then if you are doing your presentation in here, you will obviously have it recorded here, so you don't have to worry about it. If you're doing it live, you can film it on your phone and film the PowerPoint. But I'm assuming you guys that have showed up in person, you can just do it here, and we'll just
So
film
you don't have to turn it in there.
You'll still turn it in. You might just copy the YouTube link that I had so that other people can watch your presentation. They'll know that it's you. So you'll just copy the link of when I filmed it and pasted it. That's where I'll grade it from. So You just don't have to film it yourself because we're filming it right here.
Okay.
And that is all that I have for today. The time went way faster than I thought it would. Any questions? Whoever gets their money first, we got to have a pizza party. I know, we should be getting them soon for real. Hopefully you don't get bad news like I did about this money owed here. So, cool. We're
You
done.
guys saw the paper?
Oh, yeah, shoot. Anybody have a piece of paper?